Everything you know about the narcissist's public image is wrong. And here's why. Narcissists thrive on deception, carefully crafting an image that hides their true nature. They're not charming, generous, or kind. They just know how to play the part when people are watching. But behind closed doors, it's a whole different story. Today we'll talk about the 10 reasons why narcissists act like saints in public, but devils at home. Are you ready for number 1? They need a supply of admirers. Narcissists are like performers who can't function without an audience. They need a steady supply of admirers. Dr. Ramani Dovasula, a leading expert on narcissism, explains that narcissists curate a public image designed to elicit admiration, but behind closed doors, the mask slips. In public, they're charming, generous, and even saintly, because that's how they keep their fan base hooked. At home, without an audience, they drop the act, becoming controlling, cruel, and emotionally volatile, using their partner or family as an easy target. Think of it like a stage performance. When the curtain is up, they play the hero. But backstage, they're a nightmare. Keeping up the saintly act ensures they always have defenders who refuse to believe they're capable of harm. The more people who admire them, the more power they feel. Meanwhile, at home, where admiration isn't guaranteed, they unleash their true nature. This duality is what makes them so hard to expose because, by the time you try, they've already convinced the world that you're the problem. Let's talk about number 2. Home is their emotional dumping ground. Why do some people save their worst behavior for the ones closest to them? Dr. Les Carter, a psychologist specializing in personality disorders, explains that narcissists view their closest relationships as extensions of themselves, not as individuals with their own needs. Since they believe they own their partner or family, they feel entitled to use them as emotional dumping grounds. They spend the day playing the charming, generous saint for the outside world. But once they step through the front door, the exhaustion of keeping up the act turns into rage, cruelty, or stone-cold indifference. To them, impressing strangers is worth the effort than keeping up appearances at home. This is why you might see a narcissist light up around co-workers or acquaintances, but turn cold and dismissive the second they're alone with their family. Since their public image is their greatest weapon, they reserve their worst behavior for the people they think they don't need to fool. And that's the real gut punch. While you're left confused and drained by their emotional whiplash, the rest of the world sees them as a saint. Let's move on to number 3. They use public acts of kindness as cover. Since narcissists know that public perception is their best weapon, they put on a show of kindness, generosity, and charm where it counts. George Simon, author of In Sheep's Clothing, explains that manipulative personalities craft an image that makes them untouchable, so when victims speak out, they're instantly dismissed. This is why they'll donate to charity, help a stranger in need, or crack jokes to win over a crowd, all while their family or partner knows the truth. This saint can be a monster at home. By making sure the world sees them as good, they build a protective shield around themselves. They collect witnesses to their goodness, so that if you dare speak up about their cruelty, you're met with disbelief, and people rush to defend the narcissist instead. It's the ultimate gaslighting trap. You start wondering if you're the problem because everyone else seems to adore them. Now, let's continue to number 4. They love playing the victim. Have you ever noticed how some people always seem to be the hero and the victim at the same time? Narcissists love playing the victim because it gives them control over the story. Shannon Thomas, author of Healing from Hidden Abuse, explains that narcissists preemptively paint themselves as martyrs so that when their victims finally speak out, no one believes them. By acting saintly in public, they create an image so spotless that if someone dares to call them out, they can simply cry, "Look how much I do. Why are you attacking me?" Suddenly, their real victim is labeled as the aggressor, and the narcissist walks away with even more sympathy and admiration. This is how they turn people against you before you even realize what's happening. When you finally speak up, their flying monkeys, friends, family, or co-workers who've bought into their act rush to their defense. And just like that, you become the difficult one. Psychologist Dr. Carol McBride, in Will I Ever Be Good Enough?, calls this the narcissistic spin cycle. They manipulate the narrative so effectively that even you start doubting your reality. That's the real trick. By making themselves look like the saint and the victim, they get away with being the devil behind closed doors. You shouldn't miss number 5. They reserve their energy for their public image. Keeping up a fake persona takes energy. Energy that narcissists only spend where it benefits them. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, author of Don't You Know Who I Am, explains that narcissists see relationships as transactions. They perform kindness in public for admiration, but drop the act when there's nothing to gain. That's why they'll be all smiles, charm, and generosity when there's an audience. But the second they get home, the mask comes off. This is why their kindness feels so inconsistent. Psychologist Dr. Eleanor Greenberg describes this shift as narcissistic fatigue. They invest all their effort into maintaining their reputation, leaving nothing but exhaustion and irritation for their loved ones. The irony is that the very people who love them the most get the worst version of them, while outsiders get the carefully crafted illusion. And if you dare call them out, they'll act like you're the problem, because in their world, their energy is too precious to waste on those who've already committed to staying in their life. Are you still up for number 6? They fear consequences from society, not morality. Do they have a good heart, or just a good reputation? That's the real question when dealing with a narcissist. Harriet Breaker, author of Who's Pulling Your Strings, explains that narcissists operate on self-interest, not ethical principles. They only behave when there's something to lose. That's why they play the role of charming friend, devoted partner, or respectable co-worker. They know that mistreating people in public could ruin their reputation, career, or social standing. But once they're behind closed doors, where there are no witnesses and no immediate consequences, their true nature takes over. This is why their kindness feels so calculated. If morality guided them, they'd be decent all the time, not just when someone is watching. But narcissists see kindness as a tool, not a trait. In Moral Disengagement, psychologist Dr. Albert Bandura describes this as selective morality, the ability to justify cruel behavior when it's convenient. And that's precisely what they do. They perform goodness when it benefits them and unleash their worst when they think they can get away with it. The scariest part is that if society ever stopped holding them accountable, they wouldn't just drop the act. They'd stop pretending they cared at all. Let's keep it moving to number 7. They get away with more in private. For a narcissist, private spaces are like lawless territories where they make the rules. Lindsay Gibson, author of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, explains that narcissists push boundaries where they know they won't face resistance. In public, they know they can't scream at a waiter or belittle a co-worker without consequences. But at home, they see their partner, kids, or family as their emotional playground, where they can yell, manipulate, guilt-trip, and control without worrying about social backlash. No audience, no accountability, and no reason to hold back. This is why their behavior can seem like night and day. One moment, they're the most patient, kind, and generous person in a social setting. The next, they're cruel and dismissive in private. Psychologist Dr. Susan Forward in Toxic Parents calls this boundary testing. Narcissists see how much they can get away with, gradually pushing limits until their victim is trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and fear. To them, home isn't a place of love and safety. It's a space where they have total control, and control is all they care about. Here comes number 8. They enjoy the power of deception. Dr. Para Nemiroff, a clinical psychologist, explains that for narcissists, deception isn't just a means to an end. It's a game they like to win. Convincing the world they're a saint while keeping their victims trapped in a cycle of fear and self-doubt makes them feel invincible. The more confused and isolated their victims become, the more powerful the narcissist feels, because to them, control isn't just about getting what they want. It's about proving they're smarter, craftier, and always one step ahead. This is why their mask never slips in public. They want people to believe they're kind, generous, or even self-sacrificing. It makes their private cruelty even more satisfying. In his book, Dangerous Personalities, former FBI profiler Joe Navarro describes this as duper's delight, the pleasure manipulators get from knowing they're fooling everyone. And that's what keeps a narcissist going. They love the idea that their victim could try to expose them, only to be met with disbelief and gaslighting. The narcissist smirks, knowing they've won yet again. Moving on to number 9. They fear exposure, but think they're untouchable. Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, explains that narcissists live in a constant push-pull between fear and grandiosity. They dread being unmasked, but believe they're too clever to be caught. That's why they invest so much energy into crafting their flawless public image. They know that if people ever saw the real them, it could ruin everything. But their arrogance convinces them they're always 10 steps ahead. So they continue their abuse behind closed doors, fully believing no one will ever see through their act. This is why they double down on gaslighting when someone tries to call them out. They don't just deny accusations, they make you look crazy for even suggesting it. In his book, The Gift of Fear, security expert Gavin DeBecker notes that manipulators rely on doubt and disbelief to keep their victims silent. Narcissists use this to their advantage, planting just enough doubt in people's minds so that if their victim ever speaks up, the world sides with them instead. And just like that, Their biggest fear, exposure, gets buried under the weight of their arrogance. Finally, we're down to number 10. They use public praise as a weapon. Narcissists don't just enjoy public praise, they collect it like armor, ready to use it as a weapon whenever needed. Deborah Tannen, a linguist and communication expert, describes this as reputation leverage, the way manipulators use their public image to discredit anyone who challenges them. The more people admire them, the harder it is for their victims to be believed. So, if their partner, child, or employee dares to speak out about the abuse, the narcissist doesn't need to argue or defend themselves. They simply point to their glowing reputation and say, "Really? Everyone else thinks I'm amazing. Maybe you're the problem." And just like that, the victim is left feeling isolated, doubting their reality. This is why speaking out against a narcissist can feel like screaming into the void. No matter how much truth you tell, their fan club, friends, colleagues, even family will rush to their defense. Joseph Burgo, author of The Narcissist You Know, calls this social gaslighting, a tactic where the narcissist makes you doubt yourself because everyone else sees them as good. The worst part is that the victim starts wondering if maybe they are overreacting. When the whole world is clapping for someone, it's hard to be the only one pointing out the mask they're wearing. At the end of the day, a narcissist's charm is just a mask to control how others see them. Behind closed doors, their true nature comes out. That's why their loved ones see a side of them no one else believes exists. If you've noticed this, trust your gut. You're not imagining it. The best way to protect yourself is to stop hoping they'll change and see them for who they truly are.